All right, it's 2 p.m. Central African time. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Market View this afternoon. We begin with a major development in Eswatini's trade strategy. As global competition tightens and regional blocs redefine their economic agendas, Eswatini is making bold moves to secure its voice at the table. And today, key stakeholders have gathered at the Happy Valley in Eswatini for a high-level workshop that is aimed at strengthening the country's input in SACCU's ongoing tariff policy review. Now, representing the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Dr. Celuxolo Dludlu, he underscored the urgency of Eswatini becoming a more assertive player in regional trade talks. We break it all down. What is it that is at stake? Who stands to gain? And why now? This is Market View. Let's start the show by looking at our business news today. On our first story today, the African Development Bank has approved over 840 million emalangeni. It is a loan that is meant to support economic transformation, job creation and development across key sectors in the country. Now, the Minister for Finance, Honorable Neil Reichenberg, has announced that the funds will be channeled into strategic projects which include supporting the youth.
We applied to African Development Bank for a loan of 27.5 million emalangeni. I think one must understand that what we are doing with this money, it is really just budget support. So it's actually, we have our budget that was approved by Parliament. It was clear when I tabled the budget that we need to raise about 1.8 billion emalangeni altogether. So this is now part of that raise. But when we raise the money, we don't call it budget support to the bank, even though they understand that it is budget support. They target elements in the budget relating to youth and employment and rollout of government services. And then we identify those elements in the budget and we say, right, the money is in specifically for those elements that's in the budget for this year. And so that's the idea of this money, is really to help us to make sure we can finance the budget for this year. We've come from an era where we built up arrears because unfortunately we had a requirement for budget support in the budgets and then we didn't end up raising the loans for them. That's how we ended up with a stock of arrears. And so at the moment, with the loan we took from the World Bank, with this loan, there's another one coming from OPEC for $50 million US. All of these is to make sure that we can have our budget support in place as well as make sure arrears become a thing of the past in Eswatini.
We also asked the Minister for Finance, Honorable Neil Reichenberg, if government can handle more debt with these new loans, and here is what he said.
Look, at the moment the debt is going up. We can't not recognize that. But at the same time, what we must understand is our GDP is also growing in a very healthy pace at the moment. Because what we need to watch out with debt is affordability. Can we repay these debts? And so with us now making sure that our debt to GDP ratio remains around the 41%, it means that with the affordability of repaying the debts it remains there and should be in place. So as our GDP is growing, we are taking on more loans. Keep understanding that if our GDP reduces in growing, we have to reduce the amount of loans we're taking. We need to keep that balance correct as a country. Around 41% is the target.
The Eswatini Revenue Service is set to hit a record 16.5 billion emalangeni in revenue collection this financial year, a first for the country. This milestone shows Eswatini's commitment to boosting local revenue, strengthening the budget and driving economic growth. Reporting, Nelson Langamandla, Derek Msibi and Skumbuzo Mavimbela.
Well, the Nkomati and Maputo Waterhouse Commission and the Joint River Basin Authority project have signed a landmark agreement to advance water projects. Now, the MOU focuses on strengthening cooperation, boosting development and building capacity to improve water resource management and sustainability.
In the Memorandum of Understanding now are issues related to water management, water monitoring, joint technical studies, cooperation and management of water resources.
Takhona Dlamini, Acting Chief Executive of the Joint River Basin Authorities Project Board, stated that the collaboration between the two institutions is expected to deliver the desired outcomes.
Ours is to make sure that we're able to transverse through the whole basin requirements and make sure that there's effective management and planning with regards to the utilization of water. And what brings us here again is collaboration and building synergy if I may repeat that. As we build synergy, my colleague here has touched on the issues of research, knowing under the climate change phenomenon, how is water quality and quantity affected, knowing that at the end of the day, as water passes through Eswatini, it is coming from South Africa and it is transversing into Mozambique. So it is imperative that we as institutions on the ground do form a formidable force with regards to managing the resource.
The Memorandum of Understanding will be effective from today, and each party can review the MOU from time to time on its effectiveness in service delivery with the aim of safeguarding the interests of member states who are approving leaders of activities in the Inkomati and Maputo river basins. The Inkomati and Maputo Waterhouse Commission member states are Eswatini, South Africa, and Mozambique. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla, Derek Msibi, and Skhumbuzo Mavimbela, Ezulwini.
And that's our business news segment. We'll go for a break. When we return, Eswatini's strategic steps to boost its role in regional trade.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back here on Market View. Eswatini is taking strategic steps to boost its role in regional trade talks. A key workshop is being held today at the Happy Valley Ezulwini, which is bringing together stakeholders to strengthen the country's input in SACU tariff setting. With the Southern African Customs Union currently reviewing its tariff policies, Eswatini is moving to engage more meaningfully. Now, the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Melusi Masuku, was represented by Dr. Celuxolo Dludlu, stressed the importance of Eswatini being an active participant in tariff talks in the SACU region.
This workshop, ladies and gentlemen, forms part of SACU's broader effort to provide tailored support to member states. And I'm pleased that Eswatini is amongst the first to benefit. As a custom union, as we may know, we are bound by the common external tariff, and thus effective participation in its development is both a right and a responsibility. Tariffs and trade remedies are powerful tools of industrial policy. Our ability to influence these instruments must be underpinned by well-structured national processes that gather and reflect on the voices of all stakeholders, public, private, and civil society. This workshop is a step towards ensuring that Eswatini can engage meaningfully in regional tariff setting processes and respond constructively to proposals from our SACU partners. The timing, ladies and gentlemen, is opportune. SACU is currently rethinking aspects of its architecture, including its approach to tariffs. Eswatini, for its part, is revising legislation for the establishment of a national body on tariffs and trade remedies. This convergence presents a valuable opportunity to align national reforms with regional imperatives. Allow me to place on record, ladies and gentlemen, my appreciation to the Executive Secretary of SACCO, Mr. Thabo Kasipe, through the Office of the Tariff Board Coordinator, for the dedicated support provided to Eswatini since October 2024. The groundwork already done, including the virtual engagement, has created a solid foundation upon which this workshop will now build on. This in-person format today also enables deeper engagement with the private sector and civil society. Their participation is vital in ensuring that the mechanism we design is grounded in the realities of our economy and reflects the views of those most affected by trade policy. Colleagues, this imperative is not just administrative. This initiative is not just administrative. It is a strategic move to strengthen Eswatini's voice in one of the most important policy spaces in our regional integration agenda. Done right, it can serve as a model for other SACCO member states, particularly our BELN partners, on how national processes can feed effectively into regional.
Well, during the workshop, SACCO Tariff Board Coordinator Tuto Matetsa shared why it is important for member states, including to participate on the establishment of the mechanism for tariffs and trade remedies. Let's take a listen.
Has the responsibility now to be part of what we usually call the common external tariff, which it administers together with the other SACCO member states. And this tariff instrument is so important that no country can say in this world it has control on its industrial policy unless they are able to say something about whether tariffs should go up or down, or whether they should give exemptions here or there. Because industry is all about manufacturing, of which we know that because no country has everything. Usually in production, there is need many times to have certain inputs coming from outside, being used for production in our countries, and then the management of the tariffs up, down, exemption and otherwise is very, very key to be in control of industrial policy. This is our point of departure when we talk about tariffs. And now, in SACCO, as I have said, we have a common external tariff, which means that the 5 member states, including Eswatini, apply exactly the same tariff. If a change is going to happen in this tariff book, that means Eswatini must approve, be part of agreeing to that, and the other countries as well. Now, in terms of a bit of history that I can share here, the customs union is governed by an agreement, which we call the SACCO agreement. Then the SACCO agreement has its own requirements. It actually stipulates that there would be a tariff board, which would then make recommendations to the Council of Ministers regarding where tariffs should be, including changes now from time to time. Now, as the situation stands today, the tariff board is not yet established. However, the Council made a decision, and the Council represents all member states, made a decision to say, while we are preparing ourselves to have this tariff board in place, because one of the member states, being South Africa, was already advanced in terms of the institutions that could administer these things. Then the Council appointed the body we know as the International Trade Administration Commission, ITEC, of South Africa. And that is the status quo. This is a decision that was taken by Council. It is well known. It is out there. Everybody knows about it. Now, what then the member states are faced with in the interim, because tariffs keep changing. Production needs to happen. Economies are functioning. And tariffs, therefore, are required to be changed, sometimes up, sometimes down, from time to time. As SACU member states, we have then to make use of whatever arrangements that are currently in place. And therefore now, as a result, it is important that all member states, all officials, all private sector participants understand the processes that must really go on in order for all of us to have effective and meaningful engagement in these matters. Now, from my office in the Secretariat, my office is really responsible for coordinating all this work to make sure that these matters are functioning well. We are all able to talk to each other. There is smooth communication flow. Everyone is well capacitated. But the office would not do it without member states wanting to do it, because who are then the beneficiaries? It is the member states themselves. Therefore now, it was then imperative on the Secretariat through this office to make an offer to say that we would like to assist member states to gain some traction towards establishing the necessary mechanisms to enable member states to be able to play this game very well. It is not a once-off event that we can do. It has to be a process, because it's something that requires us to learn very complex things, to get to understand who plays what role, and therefore how do we bring everyone.
Right, that's it for our discussion segment. We'll go for a break. We have Sonny Lesbia, who joins us virtually for our market analysis after the break.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Right, it's 19 minutes after 2. This is our market analysis now with Sonny Lesbia, our economist, who joins us via our Zoom video link. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Sbia. If you will, just take center stage now and give us an update on what is happening with the markets today.
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo, and good afternoon to the viewer. So markets today are a bit mixed, Mr. Ngumalo, following, the global movements and the global trajectory. But what one should suffice to say is, markets are somewhat not showing the optimism we expected to see with the signing of the US European Union trade deal, in as much as we might see a bit of optimism in Europe, but the mood remains relatively flat and relatively mute there. So starting in the US, when you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, It has actually lost some 64 points in today's trading session, and the Nasdaq Composite Index has gained 70.27 points in today's trading session, and the S&P 500 stays there, looking cute at around $6,389 in all shares of volumes today. So what we're looking for in the US is, there's a barrage of economic data that's coming in. We're looking into the job markets data, and particularly we're looking into that announcement on the interest rate that's going to be happening tomorrow, because we know that the Feds are actually in a meeting today. It's actually commencing today, and we do expect to get an update in terms of what the interest rate is going to be in the US. And we know there's been a bit of a tiff between President Trump and the Federal Reserve Chair, Jay Powell, there. So we're waiting to see how that's going to play out. And, moving forward in the week, starting tomorrow, we shall see, the likes of Meta and the likes of Microsoft coming out to declare their earnings. And probably on Thursday, we'll see Apple and Amazon following on those. We do know that there's about 150 companies of the S&P 500 that are actually going to be posting their earnings this week. So it's quite an eventful week in Wall Street, and we do expect the Magnificent Seven to actually impress, and that's why we expect to see the Nasdaq Composite, the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite Index, ticking up a bit tomorrow as as today's trading session starts, and also as we go into tomorrow, we do expect the US to remain relatively in the green. And then when you move into the European markets coming into London, London is still maintaining that 9,146 mark. And, we're also seeing Frankfurt gaining a bit of, gaining some 303 points in today's trading session. So now that comes with the optimism that has been created by this trade deal. But we do know that, the automakers are somehow showing mixed movements and mixed signals when it comes to the likely impact of this trade deal, because there still are thorny issues around the issues of automakers. And we do know that there are still thorny issues around the issues of, those platinum miners and those other rare earth minerals. So we're waiting to see how that is going to play out. And we are waiting to see that as we edge closer to August 1, what is the impact going to be on the overall indices there within the European Union. And if we are going to see, leaders in Europe being in a position to recalibrate and renegotiate around those metrics, because we saw Keir Starmer also meeting with President Trump yesterday, and part of that meeting was to somehow work around those steel and those aluminium import tariffs. But overall, Europe seems to be doing relatively well, and also we do know that it's earnings season, and those earnings are also continuing to impress in Europe. And one interesting thing that we're seeing in Europe is France, they're getting closer to that 8,000 mark. So it seems, the French are somehow responding positively to this news. But we do know that the issue of the spirits there, we know that France exports quite quite a range of wines and champagnes into the US markets, and we do know that that's always been a sticky point with President Trump. So as soon as we get more clarity on those wines and spirits, then we should expect to see Paris there hitting that 8,000 mark, Mr. Nxumalo. And then that has taken up a bit of that edginess within the European Union and also within London. But we are waiting to see what happens as we get closer to August 1, because as you know, we've only seen, Japan, Europe, and there's the temporary truce with mainland China, and we've seen Indonesia and Vietnam, but really there is still quite a number of countries that are waiting to negotiate, and whatever the outcome of the other negotiations may now begin to affect what other countries are going to get and what the response from other countries is going to be. So we still are going to see a bit of uncertainty, but it is somehow dying down once, because we've seen the major world trade partners, coming to some sort of an arrangement, and then we do expect the other dominoes to fall and follow suit. And then when you go into Japan, we're seeing the Nikkei losing some $323.72 in today's trades. That's largely driven by the fact that, as you go into these negotiations, you do expect to come up with a better deal for your country. But now, the fact that we're seeing Europe also getting the very same deal somehow takes away the competitive edge that the markets were now looking into in terms of what the Japanese markets are going to be. And we do know that there is another round of talks between China and the US in terms of what is going to happen in that 90-day truce between these two major trading partners, in the sense that if we do not get an extension of those, regardless of the trade deals that we might have had coming through from the US and Japan, the US, UK, US, EU, regardless of those, if we see China and the US go back to that tit for tat type of trade war, then there is that uncertainty, and markets are waiting to see how that is going to play out. And we do know that the Asia region is the most proximal to China, and whatever happens there, so we are waiting to see what's going to happen there. But when you look at Shanghai and you look at the numbers, they are somehow showing them relative strength that China holds going into these negotiations. And then coming into South Africa, the all share index has bounced back above 99,000. And that in itself signals the shifts that we are seeing in terms of this trade dynamics, showing that we are somehow getting closer to getting deals for the entire global community. And it takes away this issue of uncertainty around international trade dynamics within the global landscape. So that is what we are counting on then. That's what we are seeing going on within those markets. And South Africa continues to stay on that upsurge. And we can see that is being driven largely by the performance of other metals such as aluminium and the overall optimism within markets. In the domestic stock exchange, we remain relatively on the same or the same level. And then when you look into into commodities, gold remains relatively steady at 322.20 $20 per barrel, 3,322 dollars per barrel. And that's purely because the trade war seems to be somewhat averted, and there's a bit of calm within markets, and therefore there isn't much need to be hedging in gold. And then when you come into that price of Brent crude, we're seeing Brent crude somehow ticking up because, number one, we're seeing we are anticipating fewer disruptions in global trade because of the trade deals that we are seeing coming out of the US and with major trading partners. But there are still issues to worry about, regarding the state of the global economy. And then in terms of the currencies, Mr. Nxumalo, we're seeing relative weakness of the lilangeni when you compare it with the dollar, when you compare it with the euro, and when you compare it with the Japanese yen. We're seeing there, we're just edging closer back to that 18 emalangeni per dollar region, and we're getting closer to that 20 emalangeni 80 cents per euro, and we're getting closer to that 829 829 yens per lilangeni. So what is happening there, Mr. Nxumalo, is we're seeing the world coming out with trade deals left, right, and center, but we're not hearing anything coming out of, Pretoria. So right now, there are a bit of worries in terms of what is going to happen to South Africa if they do not clinch a deal. Are we going to see that 30% becoming a reality? Because it seems the main dominoes have fallen, and I think the US would, it now increases the propensity and it builds the US to somehow, go for the jugular when it comes to, South Africa. So we're just waiting to see, any communication coming out of Pretoria in terms of whether we're getting a trade deal or not. So that's why we're seeing the Lilangeni weakening there in global markets. Thank you, Mr. Newman.
Mr. Spear, thank you so much for your time. Right on time, it's 30 minutes after 2. That's the end of our program today. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow again on Wusile Breakfast Show and the other programs that will follow that. Bye-bye.
Are yet to make any real difference on the ground. On Monday, Gaza's health ministry reported 14 new deaths due to starvation and said another 25 were shot dead by Israeli forces as they sought aid from a convoy.
The proper thing to do is to coordinate, to work with people's IDs. They should coordinate so each person gets aid based on their names by sending them messages. It would work much better. That way no one gets hurt. People get